सब गैर है वही है एक दिल का यार जानी दिल में मेरे यही है सुबहान मैया रानी सबका
I would like to thank you for coming to this Peace Symposium organized by the Ahmadiyya Muslim community in Malta. We shall be discussing religion, freedom, and peace. Definitely a topical subject. It could not have come at a better or worse time, depending on the perspective. There are difficult times for peace. We theoretically have peace in this country. We theoretically have peace in the Mediterranean. But obviously, the world is becoming ever more a global village. And what happens in our neighboring countries and what happens even in countries further afield cannot but affect us also in this tiny island of ours. Unfortunately, the perception is often that a lot of the difficulties arise also because of religion. I say it is a perception because there are studies which indicate that actually most of the wars that there are in this world, most of the conflict in this world is not, in fact, related to religion. But the perception, especially for a small country like Malta, where we often feel besieged, maybe because of the many times that we have historically been besieged, or maybe because of our small size. But there is often the perception that religion, or the freedom to practice religion, may be the cause of, in effect, conflict. And therefore, this subject tonight is even more interesting to debate, because I believe that around this table, there are many, if not all of us, who believe that religion, freedom, and peace can indeed be themes which work together and not against each other. Before we start this event, we will have a recitation from the Holy Quran and an introduction and welcoming address by Mr. Laik Ahmed Atif, President of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Community, Malta.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وعباد الرحمن الذين يمشون على الأرض هونا وإذا خاطبهم الجاهلون قالوا سلاما. And the servants of the gracious God are those who walk on the earth in a dignified manner, and when the ignorant address them, they say peace. I wish to start by observing a moment of silence to hundreds of brothers and sisters whom we sadly lost last week at the sea. An immigrant brothers and sisters who lost their lives while en route to Europe with the hope of a better, free, and peaceful future. Some dead bodies were brought to Malta, and yesterday we attended their funeral. I wish to invite you all to join me and to stand up for a moment of silence in their respect. Thank you. Please be seated. Here I would also like to take the opportunity to thank Malta, the Maltese government, Her Excellency, the Italian government, and all those who worked for that operation and saved many lives and paid respect to those who passed away. Your Excellency, the President of Malta, distinguished speakers, faith and community leaders, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May peace and blessings of Allah be upon you all. I'm delighted and honored to welcome you all this evening to the 7th National Peace Symposium, which is being held on the theme Religion, Freedom, and Peace. The world is facing many challenges, and each day we see on our screens and we read in our newspapers about the wars and conflicts and the terrible acts of extremism in Qadian in India. It encourages interfaith dialogue and playing its utmost role in spreading the message of peace, goodwill, harmony, and universal brotherhood. The community firmly believes in and acts upon the Quranic teaching that there is no compulsion in the matters of religion. It strongly rejects violence and terrorism in any form and for any reason. The community keeps itself engaged in humanitarian works all around the world, wherever there is a need. It continues its services to humanity on the basis of humanity first, irrespective of race, color, religion, or nationality. It promotes and practices its famous slogan, love for all, hatred for none. Our current Caliph, His Holiness Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, has led a global campaign for peace, and he has addressed people and parliaments across the globe, including United Kingdom, United States Congress, and the European Parliament, to name a few. He regularly meets state leaders, presidents, and prime ministers, as well as faith leaders, urging the need for peace based on justice. And there could be no more important message for the world today than this. I'm sure that through gatherings such as this and through people such as yourselves, give us much hope for the future. I take this opportunity to welcome you all, and once again, I would like to thank you for coming and hope that this evening will be an inspiring evening for everyone present. I wish to sincerely thank our speakers who prepared their speeches for tonight's event. Please also join me to very sincerely thank them all and Her Excellency, the President of Malta, who honored us with her presence this evening, despite having a very busy day. Her Excellency is a great advocate of peace and interfaith dialogue. I must commend her great efforts in building bridges between communities and faith. Her presence amongst us tonight is a true evidence of her wish and continuous efforts for the establishment of a tolerant, diverse, valuable, and harmonious society. She is truly president of all those who are living in Malta. Your Excellency, thank you so much for all that you are doing. God bless you. God bless you abundantly. Thank you very much.
We now invite Her Excellency Mrs. Mariluz Coleiro Preca, President of Malta, to take the podium.
Thank you, Ramona. Ladies and gentlemen, the title of this symposium is made up of three very strong, important words. Words that are perhaps some of the most relevant in the world of today. Religion, freedom, and peace are three words that, without much effort, link with the tragedies that in the recent days have been unfolding in front of our very own eyes. Three words that, each in their own way, shape the life of thousands of people that are in search of better lives. Words that drive people like us to risk everything. Words that forcefully displace people from one continent to the next, often with tragic consequences. Migration has captured the headlines of newspapers and media over the last couple of days, as reports of tragedies came in one after the other. These reports might have given the impression that this is a new phenomenon, but make no mistake, we have been predicting these tragedies for a long time. Many have been warning leaders and decision makers that these tragedies will happen and that they will continue to happen unless the holistic approach to migration is adopted. Due attention needs to be given to the situation of these thousands of people that at this very moment are risking their lives to reach a better place. The question many ask is, what have we done about this? What has the international community done to prevent the death of these hundreds and thousands of people? Deaths that were predicted, deaths that could have been avoided. Let us be clear and honest with each other. How can we start talking about peace when people act in a hostile way towards others just because the others are different? We have seen innocent people being persecuted and forced to flee their homes, forced into migrating at great peril because of intolerance, often based on religions or beliefs. We have increasingly seen aggressive push factors such as conflict and war, persecution, extreme poverty, and poor governance fueling migration, which factors are putting the lives of thousands of people on the line. These factors cannot be separated from pull factors such as the lucrative underground labor markets full of exploitation that exist in the global north countries. These factors are a reality that is not likely to change for the time being. What needs to change is the way governments, the European Union, and the international community handle this reality, because it is clear that much needs to be done. Being complacent and passive frankly equates to being an accomplice in these tragedies. Governments need to act, because turning their back is the same as being part of these immoral acts. The connection between the global north and the global south has to be acknowledged, and proposed solutions must take it into consideration. The two are inherently linked, as in the globalized world of today. What happens in the global south has a direct implication on the global north. And what happens in the north inevitably impinges on the global south. The two cannot be viewed as separate from each other, and proposed actions must take this into consideration. Ladies and gentlemen, let's focus for a moment on what is increasing the risks for migrants trying to reach Europe. If Europe continues to uphold policies that are restrictive and exclusionary, migrants will only face increased risks. If regulated openness and more mobility towards Europe continue to be sidelined by European leaders, these tragedies are unavoidable. The policies adopted so far have not led to less immigration, nor to less smuggling. They have merely led to more people dying at sea. Scaremongering and political rhetoric that fuels intolerance and prejudice is unacceptable, and we all must act to curb the inclination towards maintaining the status quo simply because of personal discomfort or some vested interest in holding on to power. We are talking about individuals with a name and identity, not faceless people we can shrug off on the pretext of some perceived threat, financial, physical, or otherwise. Let us remember that migrants are fleeing their country because they are forced to do so. Some are fleeing conflicts, some are fleeing famine or persecution, some are fleeing abject poverty, and some are seeking a job to support their families. Some are fleeing because their lives and their loved ones are in danger. In doing so, people are dying unnecessarily. Unnecessarily because states and the European Union do have the capacity to save lives. To avoid more tragedies in the Mediterranean, Europe must act decisively and innovatively. The scale of the migration phenomenon makes it clear that there must be a much greater and a more significant involvement by European member states. The response to these tragedies also warrants a more comprehensive response at an international level, which response has so far been poor and severely limited. The international community has to be more courageous and more willing to address this tragedy. It is difficult to deny that the situation we have at hand is the direct result of a continued failure of governance and policy making. Practically non-existent regular channels for migration and draconian controls at external borders mean that migrants are increasingly turning to criminals that run smuggling rings and that profit at the expense of hundreds of lives, as we have witnessed in recent days. These criminals also capitalize on the lives of migrants once they reach their destination. Migrants often find themselves in compromised situations of social vulnerability, and many fall prey to criminals who exploit them in the slave-like conditions that drive trafficking in persons, especially in women and children. The reality is that the business model of these criminals is propped up by those European policies that create barriers and inhibit mobility. It is fueled by restrictive migration policies so central to many EU member states. Reacting to the situation by preventing people from fleeing will only drive the problem further underground and render the asylum seekers ever more vulnerable and the smugglers more powerful. I am saddened at the attitude of European politicians and decision makers in addressing the issue by adopting measures which are only the tip of the iceberg. The issue of migration is not a popular one. It is not an issue that translates into popularity or votes. Indeed, some do capitalize on the issue and use scaremongering tactics to further their agendas. It is now high time for European leaders to stop turning their backs on this tragedy and to take ownership of the situation. It is time for all citizens of goodwill to stand up for their fellow men and voice their opinion, that they will no longer accept to be a party to the death of men, women, and children who want nothing more than to live in peace and freedom, which they should enjoy as of right. Any other option comes at an unacceptable cost in terms of human lives. Ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, I must recall the title of this symposium, in that freedom and peace is what many migrants want. Religion can unfortunately be an instigator for discrimination and persecution in the eyes of the extremists. Let us keep in mind that those dead men, women, and children wanted a better life. They would have not opted to leave their home if they had food to eat, if they were safe, if they were at peace and not at war, if they had access to healthcare and education, if they had decent and productive employment, or if they had prospects of a decent future at home. Let us be active even at grassroots levels in any way we can. For example, today, the President's Foundation for the Well-Being of Society is organizing a forum for